Resuming debate, the honourable member for Davenport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to start off by saying I'm sharing my time with the member from Joliette. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure for me to rise to speak to you and this House on behalf of my riding of Davenport on this Opposition Day motion on tax avoidance today. Tax avoidance was one of the top issues that Davenport residents has written to me about a year ago, and it was an issue that actually caused quite a bit of consternation in my riding after the stories of the Panama Papers came out. And for those that might not have remembered the Panama Papers, it was a huge leak of documents that basically lifted the lid on how many rich people, many powerful people in the world have used tax havens to actually hide their wealth and to avoid actually paying taxes. So Davenport residents wrote to me, Mr. Speaker, and they said, we're okay to pay our taxes, but we're really upset when we hear that there are corporations in the world that are actually hiding their taxes, or rich individuals that are hiding their wealth, and they are not paying their fair share. And I can go a little bit more into what they've said later, but I think I'm just going to continue in terms of talking about what it is that our government has been doing in terms of tackling this issue, and we've been very aggressive, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, the government knows that offshore tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance comes at a great cost to society, and that all Canadians pay the price. Tax evasion deprives the government of money that could be spent on programs and services for Canadians. Public investments in everything from health and education to research and development are shortchanged every time that someone breaks Canada's tax laws. That is why we are taking decisive action to crack down on offshore tax avoidance and tax evasion. Last year alone, Mr. Speaker, the Government of Canada invested $444 million in Budget 2016 to empower the Canada Revenue Agency to aggressively pursue those who think that they are above the law. I can assure my honourable colleagues in this House that the agency is putting this money to good use. They're focusing resources in areas of the highest risk. They're identifying tax cheats, and they're penalising those caught contravening the law. In Canada, CRA auditors conduct over 120,000 audits every year, and last year alone, that resulted in a fiscal impact assessed of more than $12 billion in taxes, penalties, and interest. Close to $8 billion of that amount, about 2/3, involves large multinational businesses and high net worth individuals, including those with offshore transactions. With the new infusion of funds, that almost $500 million that I was talking about, Madam Speaker, the CRA has increased the number of auditors reviewing offshore tax schemes and the promoters of those schemes. For the 2015-2016 fiscal year, the CRA completed over 13,000 audits related to aggressive tax planning. That led to an extra $2 billion in the public purse. And also another statistic to add, I know that the CRA will continue to increase the application of penalties to all cases of serious tax cheating. To date, the agency has levied over $218 million in third-party penalties levied against promoters and tax preparers who advise their clients to participate in tax shelter donation schemes. So, Madam Speaker, to be clear, many people move money back and forth between countries for entirely legitimate reasons. These are not the people that the CRA is targeting. The CRA is targeting individuals and companies who promote nefarious tax schemes or capitalize on them to avoid paying taxes. I want to be equally clear. Anybody engaging in these activities can face serious consequences if they're caught. Tax evasion can lead to criminal prosecution, fines, and jail time. Madam Speaker, it is the CRA's Criminal Investigations Program who investigates suspected cases of tax evasion, fraud, and other serious violations of tax laws. If it finds grounds for action, it recommends cases to the Public Prosecution Service of Canada for criminal prosecution. During the 5-year period between April 1st, 2011 and March 31st, 2016, 42 Canadian taxpayers were convicted for tax evasion with links to money and assets held offshore. In total, the $34 million in evaded taxes resulted in court fines of $12 million and 734 months of jail time. Over the same period, total domestic and offshore-related criminal convictions resulted in 508 convictions involving approximately $120 million in evaded federal taxes. That led to $40 million in court fines and 2,930 months of jail time for tax cheaters. The CRA is currently conducting audits on more than 820 taxpayer offshore files and criminally investigating over 20 taxes of tax evasion. I've just mentioned a whole slew of numbers, Madam Speaker. But what I want to reiterate is something that our Prime Minister said in the House of Commons today during question period. It is that with respect to tax evasion, this government works on a very, very strong principle. And that principle is that we hold people to account when they are involved in tax evasion, when they are not paying their fair share of taxes, whether they're individuals or whether they're corporations. Mr. Speaker, with respect to recent media reports in relation to the KPMG offshore structures, the CRA continues to take action on a number of fronts, including actively pursuing the matter to its fullest extent in the courts. Going further, by analyzing additional information, the agency has uncovered a number of additional tax schemes set up in the Isle of Man, which many people may not know. It's actually an island right in the middle of the North Irish Sea. The CRA is analyzing these additional structures to identify any similarities with the KPMG scheme, and where appropriate, will take all necessary compliance actions. But Madam Speaker, these aren't the only issue this government is focused on. Whether it is complex corporate structures using offshore jurisdictions of concern or profits shifting schemes to evade or avoid taxes, the CRA is committed to addressing any and all cases of non-compliance. For example, the CRA has more than 76 taxpayer audits underway related to the Panama Papers. It has executed search warrants, and several criminal investigations are ongoing involving both participants and facilitators. In short, the trap is closing, and those prepared to play fast and loose with the rules are going to be brought and held to account. Mr. Speaker, the CRA also intends to review 100,000 files in 2017 involved in electronic transfers of funds between Canada and 4 jurisdictions of concern. The agency is building the business intelligence and the data mining capability to eventually renew all electronic funds transfer in real time. Canadians can be assured that 100% of the transactions that don't make sense or are considered high risk will be reviewed and appropriate compliance action taking place. Aggressive, comprehensive audits are only part of the agency's strategy to go after tax evader. The CRA is also enhancing its efforts on a number of fronts, including expanded systems for information sharing, legal expertise, and targeted compliance activities aimed at high-risk and high-wealth taxpayers. Madam Speaker, globally, the Government of Canada works with its international partners through the OECD Forum on Tax Administration. Member countries promote international tax standards, reduce tax barriers, create better opportunities for Canadian businesses, increase transparency around global issues. They also coordinate strategies to ensure individuals and multinationals are not hiding money and assets offshore. The government continues to sign tax treaties with other jurisdictions. This provides further information that enables Canada and our partners to track down on tax cheats worldwide. In addition, the Offshore Compliance Advisory Committee, reporting to the Minister of Revenue, provided its first report to the CRA in December of 2016. The report included recommendations for tightening up the voluntary disclosure program. The CRA is carefully reviewing the program to ensure it continues to promote the right taxpayer behavior. Collectively, these measures are expected to have a fiscal impact of an additional $2.6 billion for the Crown over the next 5 years. But we are also committed to all of this, and we will build on all of these achievements, Madam Speaker. Last month, the government tabled its response to the report by the House of Commons Finance Committee. It was entitled the Canada Revenue Agency Tax Avoidance and Tax Evasion Recommended Actions. That report made clear that the Government of Canada support the committee's recommendations and will continue to evolve its approach of offshore noncompliance to generate even better results. So, Madam Speaker, it was a pleasure for me to speak on behalf of the residents of Davenport on this very important issue, and now I welcome questions from my colleagues. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Comments, questions et commentaires des